Morality. Tonight, we zoom off to the final frontier one last time with the TNG crew as we talk about the Picard Season 3 finale. Then we'll talk about the Mandalorian finale and conclude, of course, with DS9. All this starting right now on The Writer Brothers. And welcome back to our 300 sub celebration. Of course, we have one final massive Star Trek Star Wars sandwich to deliver. All of these things converging at the same time. The finale of Picard, the finale of Mando, the continuation of our Season 2 DS9 watch through, and of course, we've hit the big 300. That may not seem like a lot, but John, why is 300 such a big deal for our channel?
Because it's bigger than 299.
That's not what you said backstage earlier, but yeah, that's correct.
Well, we're all set to take on
I don't
versions.
reveal battle plans about guarding dark gates.
That's right. Some of you, with your fancy million subs or whatever, might see this in 30 years and go, look at the little Writer Brothers channel, they hit 300 subs. Yeah, well, that's freaking 300 subs enough to take on the Persian army, so I think we're ready to play with the big boys at this point. What do you guys say? I'm just kidding. We've been playing with the big boys the whole time. You just, knew we were coming. We are the big boys. Yeah. Everyone's just realizing it at their own time. And that's okay. We're here for you, the viewer, and we like to put on shows that you guys find entertaining, hopefully, and if you don't, we're still gonna put them on in anyway, because some people might. So, speaking of entertaining, what's the latest Disney drama, guys?
Oh my god. Alright. Well, for starters, the next round of layoffs that was promised has already begun. It's hitting Disney's social media group, pretty hard right now. Their VP is gone, and it looks like it's going to get purged all the way down. Look, let's be honest. Disney's social media presence has not done them any favors over the last while. The marketing for Disney Plus has been suboptimal, to say the least. And now Iger's taking it to those who have not been profitable. What that says for the rest of the layoffs, time will tell. We should know by Thursday or Friday any other big execs that are going to get dropped.
Yeah, it's definitely been a it's kind of been like its own sort of meta reality show. Like we could just take the information that Cameron Pasha posts on his Patreon, and I could already start writing a script just based on that alone. So, I mean, it's it's been just a ride since 2015 on. I mean, I've enjoyed watching this shit show, actually. I mean, on the one hand, yeah, it sucks we didn't get good Star Wars, but on the other hand, it's like, well, you gotta find the good where you can. And the drama out of Lucasfilm this entire time has really made for some interesting conversations across multiple different channels, and it's just been fun to watch a company take what we thought was, and that's that's maybe our fault as fans, right? Maybe we brought this on ourselves by thinking, Star Wars is an indestructible IP. Oh, no, it wasn't so indestructible after all. Oh, no, it can get really terrible. Oh, man, Jar Jar wasn't even the worst of it. Oh, it just doesn't stop. Eddie Art writes in, congrats on the big 300. It will be 3 million in no time. And claps and hello, everybody. Yeah, hello to you, Eddie Art. And yes, you are a big reason as to why we managed to hit 300. So we appreciate your continued support and showing up every night, as well as leaving comments on our shorts. It really does help. Even, guys, I've kind of poked some of my other friends here and there on their channels. Guys, even if you just say the word comment, that's appreciated. If you take that 5 seconds to just say comment sarcastically, I'll take it. It's
And yeah, every little bit helps, and you guys have been doing it. It really shows that you guys like what we're doing and want us to keep going. And so long as we have that kind of mandate, we're going to keep going, guys. So thank you.
Yep. It's 300 is just the beginning. So yeah, it's been, you could, it'll probably actually get to a point where Hulu probably will write a show about the drama at Lucasfilm and package it in some kind of, meta universe type show. Oh, well, they've already done that before, but now they're actually going to do it again. But instead of making it a comedy within a comedy, they should do like a drama within like a hacker slash film kind of deal,
Well, I'm actually hoping that Cameron Pasha will write The Downfall of Kathleen Kennedy as a novel, and that will get adapted. If only because, I want to see who they pick to play Petey in the reality show, or like in the show later.
Yeah, it'd be great if they would base it on us, but they will write books and stories about the pop culture stuff we discuss as we continue. But yeah, I think that probably just about shakes out, unless there's any other pop culture news you want to touch on before we get into the meat and potatoes of this sandwich here.
Well, I mean, I do want to touch on the board game side of things a little bit. There's been some big news.
Please do. Yeah, that's been a huge deal for you that you brought forth. So
yeah,
absolutely.
So as all of you know, I am a giant BattleTech nerd. I love the series. I've loved it since the 80s. And they recently did a Kickstarter for a new version of the Mercenaries content, which includes battlefield support vehicles, infantry, all the rules that don't involve giant stompy robots. And they've now put this out, and everyone is expecting, it's going to be a fairly decent Kickstarter. It turns out it's in the top 10 of all time and made over $7.5 million.
That's crazy.
It's absolutely insane. They initially had set the expected goals. They figured if they hit 2 million, they would be very shocked. So their whole team is completely blown away by this. If you haven't played Battletech, it is a fantastic game. I highly recommend checking it out. And truth be told, you can play a game of Battletech for probably as little an investment as $20, and you can go all the way up if you want to thousands and thousands of dollars.
Nice.
So it's up to you.
That sounds
Some
like
of the-
Star Trek Online.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways. The nice thing about the rules is they're designed specifically so that you don't... It's not like Warhammer where the most expensive model wins. It's whoever has the actual best strategy with what units they've got that wins. And it's a lot of fun. I really recommend checking it out. Some great YouTubers have done some great content about how to play and what you need to get started. Guys, check them out.
Yeah, I'm intrigued.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. All right, so what everybody really came here for, probably our
Just
most
one
watched
quick
segment
thing.
this week, because, well, maybe Mando will be worth talking about too, at least for a couple minutes. I'm just kidding. We'll try to get a good discussion in overall. So, if you've been following this channel, 10 weeks ago, we embarked on a journey that we had no idea where it was going to take us. And then along that journey, we have found ourselves back in a galaxy far, far away, and while we'll definitely get into that, I put the wrong graphic up, bear with me here. We'll go ahead and get our quick non-spoiler overview done, although I think at this point most everything's been spoiled anyway. But for those of our dedicated viewers who don't go to anyone else for news, we should probably keep some consideration for those people. Quickly go around the room. You know what? I'm just gonna go ahead, not just say just by the episode, but I'm gonna go ahead and give my overall rating on this season. As far as overall Star Trek goes, I'm gonna rate this overall. It's a 5 out of 7 for me. It's got a lot of good things going for it, but it does have some drawbacks. There's definitely some lacking the classic Star Trek feel overall. Some other commentators have made suggestions that, you know, with how many episodes we did get, maybe 1 or 2 things could have been shuffled and they could have done a quick bad guy of the week on the side, or maybe opened with a bad guy of the week and then go into the long arcs. I mean, there's any number of things that could have gone better. I personally enjoyed it. I absolutely loved this season. I'm definitely going to rewatch it a couple of times. I've already shamelessly watched certain scenes that we'll get into. But that's also because I had standards. I said you can go back and rewatch my videos. I rewatched this show. I was very clear that my standards were fan service, not necessarily, you know, nostalgia porn, but fan service was definitely met. I think a lot of the situations were earned, and so I definitely recommend that with all the controversy, you got to watch and decide for yourself. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you go in wanting to hate this show, it will give you reasons to do so, as will literally anything. Looking back on past Star Trek, I think the reason a lot of people get offended is because the Star Trek that inspired us, you know, it creates some of our best formative memories, especially as kids. I myself have I have some of my old Star Trek Micro Machines. I still have those. And a lot of those adventures that I created in my mind and in my own imagination, they were inspired by the classic Trek. And so, you know, when someone shows up and starts playing with your toys differently than you play with your toys, yeah, that's going to upset you. And so I get it. I understand the resentment. I understand that it's not everyone's cup of tea. That's perfectly fine. That's why I try to look at videos. That's why I try to look at movies and shows through an objective lens, though. And objectively taking my personal things out of it, I would say that this series, even as a standalone sci-fi series, is good on its own. And so for me, it's pretty solid mid-grade Trek for me. But Corione, what about you?
So I'm going to give it a rating, believe it or not, of 3.6 out of 7. It is just barely a pass. Here's my logic. Everyone knows there's a dramatic difference between the movies and the regular series. The regular series has more science than fiction. right? They go out of their way to make things sound technical, to get more into the philosophical. They have the time to do that in the regular series, so that's what they do. The movies tend to be more adventure stories. I am definitely more of a series guy than the movie guys. But Picard season 3 plays like the movies. It really feels like more of an adventure story to me, which is fine. Right, which is fine. But then I have to look at it as an adventure story. And if I'm looking at it as an adventure story, I got to look at, is the protagonist believable as a man of action? Not anymore, really. Okay? This kind of feels like a Expendables, if Expendables was done, like 15 years later than what it already was. Where it is just like a bunch of old men and old women having one last adventure, which is kind of the point of Picard season 3, is to have them have that one last adventure, right? But it feels like they waited too long to do it, in my opinion. The big fan servicey reveal in the previous episode, to me, it broke my immersion in the story completely. That's me personally. It may not do the same for everyone else.
I'll give you my reasons, but yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like that it's just where I'm at, right? The idea behind the final arc of how this went through was intriguing. And if it had been hinted at or built up a little more over time, I think it could have been better. I also think that the last episode, the last about 20 minutes of the episode, really felt like they were trying to backdoor pilot Star Trek Legacy extremely hard. And since that's not going to materialize, and we've been told it's not going to materialize, I kind of feel cheated for that. Because had it materialized, that could have been interesting. Since it didn't materialize, I feel like it's a cheat. So, I mean, that's where I'm sitting. I think it's worth watching once. And if you find scenes that you got really hyped for, that you thought were cool, dude, rewatch them. But I'm looking at this far more critically. I'm finding that I'm not willing to go back and dream in the Star Trek universe anymore. I'm finding I'm looking at it through a very critical eye. And when I look at it through that critical eye, I can sit there and go, these are the things that I don't like. There are some cool things I did like. Okay, there are definitely some cool things I did like. Data's characterization I really enjoyed. Thought it was a journey they took him on in a very short amount of time. Picard's relationship with his son, I thought was a very interesting arc that I felt definitely needed more time to grow, but could have been cool. Picard and this series really, really needed a sit down of Picard and Crusher really just having out everything that they could only barely touch on due to time constraints. This one either needed another 5 episodes or they needed to cut it into a movie. I don't know which, but in the current format of like 10 episodes, it didn't work for me. And I think that's what I can say without getting too much into spoilers.
So 4 out of 7 for you then.
3.6. I'm not giving them.
Well, that is our middle ground rating. Is the 4, since it is the middle number between 1 and 7.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay. I'm putting it this way: if I was grading it, it would be a 51%. They just barely squeaked by the pass.
And that's again cultural differences. That's not how we recognize it in the United States. The United States is 75% to pass, or 70%, I believe, to pass standardized testing. But
yeah, okay,
yeah. So yeah. But anyway, yeah, go ahead, John.
I don't know. For me, I'm with you, Corey, on a lot of the points you made, especially because like Star Trek has always been the nerdiest of all of them. Like to me. I'm sorry. Go ahead without me, Scogli.
Sorry. Thoughts on the episode? Okay.
Just the non-spoiler overview, real quick. Yeah,
Non-spoiler overview. Okay, so yeah, I came into this expecting it to be dumb as hell, but I came into it with a warm heart because people that I respect told me that it was a love letter to the fans, and I was like, okay, all right, I'm going to look at it as such and try to like look down from the top and see what's going on here. And Terry, man, I feel you. And I'm sorry for what Star Trek has done to you over the past 20 years that got us to this point. I feel you, man. I appreciate it. Overall, I give it like a six out of 10. Like we were saying that big reveal in the last episode when the deed came out, I was like laughing. I'm like, this is dumb. I'm like, I don't care. I love it. I was just beaming with joy for some reason. It was awesome. It was weird. It was a weird experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm assuming or did you have anything else to add?
I think I'm cool with that right now. Got a guy coming up to the counter.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and go into the spoiler stuff. So, is it cheesy? Yes. Is it campy? Of course it is. But that's been a staple of Star Trek since episode 1. I know that I have argued with some of the other hardcore legacy fans that have said that, well, product of its time. Okay, guys, if we're going to use the product of its time argument, then that's really the only thing that's plaguing New Trek. It's product of its time. Now, we can try to keep work to continue to guide it. I do thoroughly believe that Strange New Worlds and Picard Season 3 happened because of a lot of the discussion that we've had. Even though they monetized the negative reactions economy, at the same time, they also knew that that wasn't going to be a sustainable route, so that's why they gave us Strange New Worlds, which did make attempts, didn't stick the landing for a lot of people. And that's what I'm realizing with Picard Season 3, and I can see why it didn't quite stick the landing with a lot of people. I think a lot of us just got very caught up in the moment with the nostalgia of it, for sure. But that's why I say in the end it's mid-grade level Trek. It's not the best, that DS9 has to offer, which we haven't gotten into yet, but we've had a lot of good DS9 already in the first couple of seasons. So it's just a matter of how you want to look at this in the end. And
yeah,
I like I said, I get it. Nemesis of Eden writes in, I came into it with an open mind, and the last season was great. The first 2 seasons, not good. I agree with the first season. Second season, I didn't watch. Who else remembers Ryan the Romulan? Lol. Yeah, right. But I enjoyed it for what it was. 5.5 Picard in general. Season 3, Nemesis, 7 out of 10.
I get you.
Yeah. So, the thing is, though, is it's like, you know what? I think that a decision was made to go with the hopeful, optimistic, cheesy route, and I think that was the right call, because I said before that this season felt like it was going to be darkness into light. Now, I don't think they did a very good job of quite setting up the new universe and what it's for sure going to look like, but they did a great job with the imagery by starting it with the expected Drek, but then by the end, we're back on the Enterprise D turning the lights on. And we're against all odds gonna fly into the center of, WBRG to blow up the transmitter. I mean, for me, it was enjoyable because I remember watching Next Generation, and you have so many episodes of the Enterprise D with recycled static shot after recycled static shot taking our heroes' places. Now, they do some battles, but even the battles are very, static. Here's the Enterprise, here's the enemy, and that's what you see is some lights flashing and whatnot. And I think people kind of read into that being a product of its time. I think if they had the capability, we would have seen more graphics like we've seen in a lot of modern Star Trek. I say this because a lot of the original set designers have been going on these shows and have been sitting in on the set while they do the work, and have been grinning and have been happy about it. So for me, it was the Enterprise D gets her first big movie, and what happens? She gets punked by a 20-year-old bird of prey. And then the Enterprise E swoops in for the rest of the TNG movies to take all the kick-ass glory shots. Don't get me wrong. It was awesome. I like the Enterprise E. Sovereign class is a solid kick-ass design. But it's not fair. So when we got to see the D resurrected and given a middle finger to the worst Star Trek movie ever made, and finally gets a moment of glory of action, I was like, you know what? What's more hopeful and optimistic than going into a no-win scenario like that and getting a cool, glorious moment in the sun, and then finally, ending on that kind of high note of yeah, this was awesome. Yeah, it's inspired. This entire season was definitely inspired by the original 6 movies, and it was definitely inspired even by Star Wars. If anything, it just proves that the Kurtzman model doesn't work. It proves that the classic Trek influence needs to be there to some degree, and let's at least acknowledge that this was steps in the right direction, and let's keep improving, is what I'm trying to get at. And guys, if you don't like Picard Season 3, the best thing you can do right now is talk about the Star Trek you do like, and start going on those rants and raves about the Star Trek that you've always loved, that's always inspired you, because, like I said, in the end, I think that a lot of us get passionate about Star Trek because of what it inspired for us when we were kids, or, even young adults in some situations, and we look at how badly we feel it's represented by New Trek, and we take it personally. And it's okay to take it personally initially, but you don't necessarily have to let that anger and that resentment stay. You can let it go. And you can accept and realize that unless they can erase all the copies of the originals in your home, it's not going to make a difference. And then the other thing is, too, is do I care about Enterprise G? I'm going to be honest, it was whatever to me. I've been experiencing my post-TNG era for the last 13 years. Because my first MMO ever was Star Trek Online. And no, it's not perfect. No, it's definitely got its problems. But for me, it's basically like playing with my Micro Machines again, but in digital form. That's why that game means so much to me. And I would encourage any Star Trek fan to go give those stories a try. It's totally worth it. I mean, I'm at the point where, you know what? Star Trek Online, we're our own timeline now. We'll be the Sigma Tau Omega timeline. And everything else in New Trek can be the Alpha timeline or Beta timeline, whatever. It doesn't really matter in the end, because the stories and experiences that I started my journey on in Star Trek Online, they happened. There's missions that you can't even access anymore right now because they got archived because of the way they changed everything. But you know what? I still experienced those stories. I still went on those adventures. To quote an episode of a show, it exists in here. So, that's really what I think we need to remember as fans of Star Trek, is while we do get passionate about it, let's seize the opportunity that new fans are here. And yeah, there's going to be some of those idiots that are like, oh, Trek only got good because of Kurtzman. You know what? Fine. People are allowed to have those opinions. Don't let that discourage you from trying to reach out to other fans that might actually listen to what you have to say. Yeah, I've had my fair share of blocks from sensitive people on Twitter who can't take a dissenting opinion because it's apparently offensive. But I've had others who have considered what I have to say and go, oh, you know what, maybe it isn't fair for me to judge other people based off of their own ideas, because if nobody's hurting me... Exactly. And that's why I love Star Trek, because the discussion's always good. The discussion's always, even if it's some of the worst Trek that can be. And do I think that it would be smart to sell it? I mean, guys, unless Apple or Amazon is guaranteed to buy the Star Trek IP, I really don't want Star Trek to go to auction at this point. because we have seen what happens when the right people get into the position. We can see the improvements that do take place. But the thing is, if Star Trek goes up for auction, there's a chance Disney could buy it. And do we really want Disney Star Trek? Or someone worse than Secret Hideout? I know it's hard to initially fathom, but
It could happen.
it could get... Yeah, life taught me very early on, never ask can things get worse. Life takes that as a personal challenge.
Like, you know, in theory, 10 cent could buy it. Like a Trek owned by China. Like, right?
Yeah, I would rather not. I mean, if Secret Hideout was meant to have the license pulled, it'll happen. But it's... Like I said, guys, promote and support the Trek you love. Don't worry, you aren't required to have an opinion on New Trek if you don't want to give it, if it's all negative. Go ahead, John.
I like what you said there about like you talking about the stuff we love, because like that's really what the inspiration for this show is like, if we're gonna really talk about old Trek being better, we got to go through and watch it. And for me, like,
Yeah, real quick.
even back to my earlier point, like
Nemesis of Eden says, everyone, I gotta run. Stay amazing, beautiful people. Yes, you too, Nemesis. Thanks for staying for my rant. I appreciate it.
have a good one. Thank you. For me, like a lot of the things about Star Trek that always bothered me was like the visuals, and like that is definitely something Kurtzman has on the old Trek. Is like they're pretty.
They've gone down. The visuals have degraded in quality since Discovery Season 1, unfortunately.
I don't know, dude. When I was watching that, like they've degraded in theatrics. Honestly, the quality, like the space is black. It is so like dark, but then when you see the space station and it's still dark, you're like, yep, that's space. Like you can throw all of your lights on it, you can throw all of your banners and your sparkles, and it's still gonna be like against black, like the darkest black. And I really feel like that's why they got it going for me personally, especially like, dude, all of those ships on one space dock, and then the other space dock is a shield. And that thing exploded like the Death Star, but also like went out like a champion. Like those visuals are spectacular. And that's something for also in terms of Mandalorian that I love, is that like those are some of the greatest starfighter star battles in CGI we've ever gotten, because we finally have the quality to do it. So like that's like, honestly, I think that's your guys' biggest beef with Kurtzman Trek. It's like you guys finally got the visuals, but you forgot the story somehow. After like 30 years of nailing the story forever, you finally got the CGI equipment, that Unreal 5, to make the space match, and you flunked? How did you lose that? And fair. Like that's really the big thing, because like for me, this new Picard season, like I think you guys hit it on the head when you said it's like a movie, which to me is the most like disappointing thing possible, because Star Trek is like the actual time where you can go to MIT and you can go to all of these schools where these kids are studying quantum physics and be like, hey, you guys want to help us generate that, and we can add it to an episode, and we just literally have our main plot synopsis theorized as like a real generation, because like our computers can finally start to generate those images and stuff. So like, why not take this time to really start motivating space travel again? And just in terms of like the exploration point, like why are we doing Star Wars 72.0 and not even like it was such a, for me, the whole season was like a harsh, I want you guys to remember why you liked the old Trek, but here's a bunch of really old people that have not done Star Trek in a long time. And then here's some new people that are enthused, but we're going to focus on the old people the whole time. Like, I really feel like Picard
it was the tale of two ships. The SS Retirement Castle and the SS OK Boomer. And
well, not even OK Boomer, because like by the end of the first episode, the other ship was on Team Retirement Capital, so it was like, hey grandpa. But then it was like, okay, now the babysitting club is going to go on its own adventure, and everyone else isn't. But then at the same time, like this to me feels like Picard, that one scene where he's in the bar and it's talking about him actually meeting Jack for like a split second and he didn't know it. That to me should have been the whole show. Was just constantly new student of the week. Picard discusses game theory about space travel. And that's how we're introduced to this other group of team that he's always been coaching the whole time we missed him.
Honestly,
like, these students keep coming back to him way after they reach captain. And that's where we meet 7 of 9. She's a captain. And towards the end, the Borg are back. Like, that's kind of just the way I felt like this was like so much of let's try to do Transformers, CGI it up, but then let's also remember the old stuff, but forget the main point of the old stuff, which was the nerd stuff. The like actual science, the actual like trying to hype up space exploration. That I feel like is the biggest thing that was lost. And it's also the thing that like was the most wholesome. It wasn't a journey of like empirical like taking over or fighting back. It was literally just a story about like what is out there, and like that's what we need more today than anything is what is out there questions, not can we kill each other with this.
I mean, it was like you mentioned the visuals, and it was like one of the things that you know I was hoping for after the Star Trek 2009 movie was that we were going to get that kind of stuff. That we were going to have, like, you know, the James Cameron Avatar exploring a strange new worlds shit. And it's like, talk about opportunities that are just continuing to be flushed down the toilet by not getting back to that. It's just, yes, it's a 10-hour TNG movie. And it's I think it's what we would want. It's what we've been wanting since season 1. And I've actually heard some people make a fair point that if this was season 1, they would have been considerably more excited. But because they were so jaded from season 1 and 2, and it's like I'm like, I can't argue with you on that because that's entirely a fair point to make. And for you not to trust the new product, like I said, if I had watched season 2, I probably wouldn't have even bothered with season 3 either. I could potentially have a totally different mindset because I skipped season 2. I'll admit
that
it.
logic is the same reason I don't drink Fireball. Like, first couple times are bad. Now it's just always bad. Like, there is a...
Especially since they stopped making it with antifreeze.
There you go, that too. That's why I've never really like had a problem with people like not liking a lot of the stuff that I like. Like, there's a lot of bad out there. Fortunately for me, like I listen to everybody complain, so I dodge a lot of it. Like most bad stuff, I just haven't seen because I've heard all of the bad reviews, and I just dodged it. So like to be watching it now, like watching the good stuff, and actually like being educated in writing and trying to like learn how to do it and do it myself, like it to me it feels like this is like the thing that every writer, especially the ones that are actually paid to do it, should be doing. Like this is, everybody's like, what are you doing with your free time? You should be studying TV. It literally is the easiest study material and also fun. Like it was made to entertain and it entertained millions, and you're trying to entertain millions more. So like, I don't know, pull up a chair, or sit on your couch or on your phone. Like, come on guys, like there's no excuse for bad writing when you're paid to write and you have all of the source material and it's in a fun, digestible manner that all of your audience already wants. Like, all you have to do is be like, how do I flare up the images? How do I how do I write this captain based off of today? Like, what did change in the last 20 years? Let's find out. Let's figure that question out. Let's not just be like, everything's different, everybody's on fire, and the Borg are back.
Yeah, I mean, like, look. Yeah, look, if I had been writing Picard, okay, Picard would have also been a Starfleet Academy series. Okay? We would have had Picard teaching at the Academy, taking a couple of students under his wing every, quote unquote semester, right? And one of the very first guys that would have been under his wing would have been Shaw. And there would have been a falling out, and that would have perfectly set up the moments that we had for this season.
And then he'd meet with his students under the tree where he talked with Boothby.
Yeah. Right? Like, or, like after class or whatever. Or, hell, man, even if he was like the bartender at the launch pad, right? Which is like deep lore cuts, but still, right? We could take anything along those lines, okay? But have him be that, have him build the relationship with the younger people, and then do an adventure like this. So it feels earned. So it feels like everyone's like, look, you were a great teacher, but that was when I was at the academy. I've been in space now a bunch of years. I know what the hell I'm doing. Right? That would have been a great way to have the animosity be there and it be earned.
But not so much just the animosity, but like I feel like with those first 2 seasons, or even like the whole series as a whole, it should have been that idea of like him teaching the next class, because then all of the fans are like, let's see if these students learned anything. And now we're watching spin-offs and we're judging the characters more than the show, because we watched their teacher, we know who their teacher is, we know all of his lessons, and we know what they should have learned. And now watching their failures is actually kind of like, oh, maybe I would have failed like that too, having watched him when I was younger and not as an older person. Like, those kind of thoughts actually project more investment into the total franchise. But like that's why I think it's more of a wasted opportunity, is like, Sir Patrick Stewart is just such an eloquent speaker. So like, give him the lecture hall and do it. And like, you can do the spin-offs. Like in the episodes, you can have like it start where he's giving a lecture to the students, but we're watching the future captain as they're in their actual like it's a back and forth time dilation issue.
That would be sick.
The captain mess it up or not mess it up, and that's what the lecture is trying to teach him. And sometimes it's super exciting, and sometimes it's like super boring about the diplomacy that occurs. But that's what Star Trek always was. It was a nice ebb and flow between fun and high octane, but also casual coast seeing, driving and seeing pretty pictures.
I gotta hand it to you guys, because I'm contemplating a downgrade to a 4 out of 7 after hearing this, because with your idea, you guys have both just basically managed to eviscerate the entire series and its purpose and point. I don't think I'll ever I don't think I'm going to downgrade. I think I'm going to keep it a 5 out of 7, because if we think about the trash that he had to start with and to work with, okay, Terry wasn't on this show. He was showrunner for this season, so...
No, and I'm not trying to discredit anybody. I'm just saying, like, literally, like, this is what Kurtzman should have thought.
You guys are 100%. Well, and that's why I keep saying that Kurtzman isn't.
Need to start thinking like.
That's why I keep saying that Kurtzman isn't the supervillain that he's been made out to be. I think he's just a businessman who's put the wrong people in place. We'll see what happens with Star Trek Legacy, of course, but
he gets some people come up to him and they're like, "This is a great idea," and he's like, okay. Go ahead, give it a shot."
Right, but the
kind
thing
of
is,
off. It checks all the boxes, right? They're like, "Oh yes, sir."
That's exactly it, and that's what pisses me off about what Corion and John have just brought up. Is it's like, okay, not only do you guys already have a better presentation to start with, but it also would have been a much better way for Professor Picard to push his personal politics. Because instead of, we're going to make this all about, repudiation of Brexit and Trump and all that, they just use similar themes and have him talk about them in a more dignified manner, because it's more appropriate because it's at least at a lecture hall and that's where we can have the debates about the Federation.
It's assigned to one character rather than the entirety of the Federation or the entirety of Earth. Like that's the big issue with a lot of these like backhanded subliminal. Like, this is the worst version of subliminal messaging.
It's lazy generalizations that perpetuate generalized arguments.
But it also splits the audience right out the gate. Like Picard as a character having a speech can split the audience 1,000 ways in one, who cares? But when you assign literally the entire background to split half of the audience at the gate, like that's just bad writing.
Yeah, no,
Well,
the better.
I mean, even guys, even with my idea, what they could have done is literally, let's say you wanted to have a specific, we're going to try to repudiate, say, Trump, okay? You could have had an episode where they're talking about ethics in command, and you could have had some, like, I don't know, Andorian student come up and be like, yeah, this isn't how my culture works. And made a very, very make Starfleet great again kind of argument with Picard. And just had it been like, that way everyone who is not on that side can go, well, that's just how his species is. And everybody who is has a hero. And the same goes with Picard. They could have done a fantastic job of this by setting it in a lecture setting, by having, you know, the argument be appropriate for both sides, and each side making their valid arguments.
That's literally what the Orville did.
Yeah. And it would have been great.
It's really amusing, though. A lot of the anti-Picard Season 3 people are also people who praise the Orville, but then also turn around and want to claim that Picard Season 3 is woke. I'm sorry. Orville Season 3 was like 100% way more woke than Picard Season 3 even touched, if at all. Like,
yeah.
The Orville actually deals with all the social issues, but they also don't exactly take, they kind of do take some sides in it as well. But Seth is at least respectful of dissenting opinions. He's not trying to force the issue. But no, the reason that
Seth does it better. Seth does it, the characters take sides.
Right.
And they don't all take the same side. They each get a chance to express their side. Like, I think that's the missed opportunity with all this woke in TV stuff, is like, express your side. You finally have the platform to share your side in one through monologue. Have Steelman the opposite side to show that you're intelligent enough to listen to your opponent, and then
that's
to make them look intelligent, and then like dissect it that way, because that's what actual like intelligent writers do. Like, that's where all the credited writers came from. Like,
yeah,
we need to see a lot more steel manning. I'm so glad I heard somebody say that word here. Oh my God, nobody knows how to do that. They think they can win discussions without understanding the other perspective. That is so wrong.
Yeah, like, dude, I would pay 100% pay to have Tucker Carlson debate Whoopi Goldberg while both of them are wearing shock collars controlled by fact checkers.
Or Don Lemon. Don Lemon's out of a job. Both Dick Carlson and Don Lemon on the same show. Babylon Bee posted an article about them starting a show together, and I'm like, well, first of all, the Lemon Carlson sounds like a drink that we'd all need to have to sit through it. But also, I would absolutely I would almost pay money to watch that shit show of a shit show between those two just constantly arguing.
Well, no. But the key is that there are fact checkers on both, checking both of them in real time. And they're both wearing shock collars, so if they say things that are not factual, they just get electrocuted on air. That's what makes the show actually good.
Well, no, okay, see,
I think that's just how we need to do presidential debates.
I think that's just another way to control people and their opinions, because, like, I think the real challenge would be for one showrunner to do it from one side, the light side, and then the other do it from the other side, the dark side. And then we legitimately have them go Marvel Infinity War toe to toe. Legitimately. Like, each show tries to get ratings. We see if it really is a 50-50 split, or what if it's like literally everybody likes to watch both because it's kind of fun to watch the fight and kind of fun to be a part of it because we're all really tired all the time, so we get our kicks where we can get our kicks. And I think that's more like the big issue, is because I think if we did try to pit two sides against each other, but one show steelmans the other and the other show does it from the opposite side, steelmanning their opponents, and then we watch as their characters grow and see what happens. We see how people actually are as people, but we also learn to like actually argue without cutting each other in half or without constantly trying to degrade and denigrate each other.
Yeah.
Mostly because like that's just bullying and like it's really annoying and really gross. Like so like maybe tear down your opponent's actions and ideas and then also hold their hand and shake their hand and say, hey, thanks for coming out. Like this was fun. Rather than being like, hey, I hate you. Like, because you don't. Like,
it's
if we all hated each other, we would.
well,
really
and I'll finish up, and then we'll move on to Mandalorian. So I'll just finish up on this, and that's really why I'm saying, like, guys, get excited about the Star Trek you love and promote and talk about it, because at the end of the day, anybody, and I don't, if you do the whole real fan thing, look at yourself in the mirror and slap yourself for being dumb, because that's elitist garbage that is antithetical to the ideas of Roddenberry's Star Trek, okay? Anybody who likes Star Trek, whether they only like Discovery, whether they only like TOS, DS9, the JJ movies, the TNG movies. I have people whose opinions of Trek I respect, but they also love Star Trek Nemesis somehow, okay? We all have our different flavors of Star Trek that we love. And it's okay to like certain flavors more than others. It's okay to never want to put other flavors in your mouth. You aren't required to like all of Star Trek. But if somebody says they like Star Trek, that's enough for me. That's a fan. I will debate them, and I'll call them out, and I will say, hey, no. If you refuse to listen to people's ideas, you're missing the point of Star Trek. You need to go back and rewatch it. But I don't forever brand people. When I call somebody out on their behavior, I don't brand you as being a buzzword of the week forever. I try to articulate myself, so I say, hey, you are being an ass. You need to stop being an ass. This is why you are being an ass. You need to, check yourself before you keep wrecking yourself. Most of the time, I get a middle finger and, what do I know? Which, okay, whatever. But other times, sometimes I do reach people. And it's not about like, I reached people, change your mind. No. It's about encouraging a better world and getting people to recognize that we all have the right to exist and have ideas. Good ideas or bad ideas are overcome with better ideas, and so not everybody's required to conform to every little aspect of society. So, in the interest of Star Trek, that's why I'm regardless of how this series, played out in the end, I enjoyed it. I wish other fans of long-time TNG fans would enjoy it, but I did notice a pattern starting already. Some people who do like Nemesis did not like Picard Season 3. I found that to be rather fascinating. And so I'm gonna keep the dialogues going, and I'll see if that pattern holds. But it seems that people felt comfortable. Me, I felt Nemesis. Everybody was tired and wanted to be done with the series, and this season felt like even Patrick Stewart's ready to go for 10 more seasons. So I felt the love and enthusiasm throughout, and so that's why I liked it. That's why I promoted it. That's why we talked about it. And I want, if we continue with more Star Trek in this direction, I think even you, Corion, would agree that that's better than if we go back to Discovery or, granted.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, we'll see how Nick Jr. TOS pans out with Season 2 starting up in June, and we'll just
cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, look, you know what I would
going into it with a warm heart.
Like, honestly, you know what I would really love? This is the hill I'm gonna die on. Make series 26 episodes again.
Oh,
right?
I know, right?
I mean,
just an episode of just a full episode of one character doing there's daily stuff where you get to meet their mom and
I'd
stuff.
Like to offer a compromise.
Sweet Star Trek.
If we're gonna do 26 episodes, I still want maybe 1, 2, or 3 episodes a week. I think we should do little, because I liked the little mini arcs that this season had. Episodes 1 through 4, I still hold were really good.
Standalone, great.
Episode 8, I think, was my favorite personally because of the data scene. But this series had him coming back. That was the high point. I mean, I ugly girl cried seeing the interior of the Enterprise again, and I liked seeing the Enterprise D finally get her moment of kicking ass and total glory. But
Right, because I always felt like that ship could seriously throw down, and you kind of never really got to see it.
the Dominion War kind of builds up the Galaxy class, but like I said, for the TNG crew, the Enterprise D, it shuttles the crew back and forth. Either it gets its butt kicked or it's impervious. There's no real moment of, oh my god, I love the Enterprise D.
I loved how they all just like look back over their shoulder at Beverly, like, what the shit? She's like, yeah, a lot has happened in the last 20 years. I was like, oh man.
Yeah, I mean, like, moments like that were actually pretty decent. There was a great humorous moment where Worf pulls a phaser out of the hilt of his sword, and Riker looks at him and he's like, you had a phaser the whole freaking time? And he's like, what? Swords are more fun.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, you know,
Falls
I'm like,
asleep
I can't
in the
even
chair
argue,
on the bridge.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
but
Yeah.
I
right?
thoroughly love Data talking. It's like, you know, a Data's moment too, when he goes, look, I just, my gut tells me I can do this. And yeah, Troy going, why am I sensing enjoyment? And him grinning while the Star Trek fanfare goes off was probably my favorite moment of the series, just because it was so, it's
Now,
like, but
It was absurd.
I am going to say this. In the lore, it's always mentioned that the Galaxy classes handle like you're flying a steakhouse in space. So the fact that it's doing precision maneuvering feels weird to me. Like, it should not be maneuvering like a starfighter in Battlestar Galactica, but I do respect the friggin' work that the CG guys did to try to make that as believable as friggin' possible.
Oh, that shot when Deanna just slides in sideways up from the bottom, that was great.
oh, that was one of the best moments.
I'm not arguing that it looked beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm arguing that it kind of breaks lore, but
It does.
was still good.
But that's the
That's the
cheesiness and
fun for
campiness
Data.
I'm talking about. And
Right,
Data
right.
Data grinning while he's doing this impossible shit. Yeah, I've been through a couple of no-win scenarios in my life already. I can tell you with an absolute certainty that hopeful, cheesy optimism, I will take that over being depressed and sad all the time. So,
Absolutely.
All I'm
Absolutely.
saying is Vin Diesel has drifted diesel trucks. Like, I'm okay with Data.
And Corione,
Oh, yeah, dude, I've-
also
listen.
gained, like, actual life.
Bro,
is
I have
slightly
drifted
able
a
to
Toyota
drive.
Sienna around a corner. Like, I know that shit is possible.
so
Right, exactly. Like, to me, I felt like the whole setup was a credit to Data's, like, no, it's a gut feeling that I can do this if I just do it.
yeah, you know what? I might fire up an STO stream after the show because I have been working on my Enterprise D build, and I have been building it out to be maneuverable, and it churns and slides and drifts. So I'll show you. It absolutely can be done with the Enterprise D, but yeah, no, it's been a fun process working on that build. But all right, we've talked about Star Trek Picard. It was good. I actually enjoyed watching it. I hope it was all worth all y'all's time. I hadn't felt that excited for Star Trek since 2009, and so that's the stuff that I would like to get back to. And yes, I would like more substance of Trek. Don't misunderstand. This is not an acceptance of, okay, here's the standard, this is all you got to do going forward. If the first season of Star Trek Legacy is just more fan service, I'm probably gonna, that's just not gonna keep me. The expectation is continued improvement.
Yeah, if this was a season 1 of a Trek series, I would hang around for season 2 and 3. I will 100% say that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Moving on. Now, if you've also been watching this show, you know that we've been covering The Mandalorian, which had its highs and lows, like Picard Season 3, and, well, I'll give my quick non-spoiler overview is this should have been like a 3, maybe 4-hour movie or a mini-series. Lots of fat could definitely be trimmed, and no, that's not just a pun. There's literal lots of moments of this show that you could probably edit it down to a 3-hour film. I got excited for stuff that didn't end up panning out later. I thought they were setting up some stuff with Grogu's backstory, that we get that one episode and that was it. I was very disappointed that we didn't do more of that. So overall, 4 out of 7 for me. Got some plot points you definitely want to watch if you're a Bo-Katan fan or a fan of the Clone Wars and Rebels. Definitely an episode you're going to want to see. Again, disappointed with the lack of cameos overall. It kind of just felt like, it just kind of felt like how a lot of people felt with Picard's season 3 member berries, that it was just shoved like, hey, it's character from Rebels. Yeah, you're not going to see him the rest of the season. So I think that, I think we could have done a lot better because season 1 and 2 were substantially better. But I also think that the Book of Boba Fett's probably a lot to blame for Mando season 3's sloppiness, along with Kathleen Kennedy getting her grubby hands involved again, and
the loss of Gina Carano.
The loss of Gina Carano definitely makes it, over something very trivial and stupid. So I'm just gonna say real quick, take a quick little sidebar here. We don't do annihilation of career. Unless people are involved with harming children, we're not gonna demand heads roll. That's another thing. I'm looking back at the last 5 years of myself, and I'm going, there was no need to get this vitriolic about the fandoms over this. That's cancel culture is what idiots do, guys. If Kurtzman wants to collect a check and put other people in charge of Star Trek, that's fine. Kathleen Kennedy, I think, does need to be fired at this point, but not because, she ruined Star Wars, but just because she's hurting people in the office and is a clear liability and is creating a lot of mental health problems. And so I'm not saying that her job, she can still have her retirement. I don't think she needs to be stripped of any of that, but she's been doing this for 5 years, making people's lives more miserable. Whereas Kurtzman clearly does have support of some people. So there's drastic differences between these two people in these positions. But ultimately, I don't want KK's life to be ruined over this because I don't care. I just would like her to retire and she can go have a nice beach house on some tropical island paradise. I'm not going to think about her. I don't think about her when I sleep. I don't really think about her except for when we're talking about her on this show, to be perfectly honest. Otherwise, I don't know this person, so why would I wish ill against them over some poor life choices in the end? We can still make good Star Wars after she's gone. We can still have better and she didn't erase KOTOR. She didn't erase the original trilogy. She didn't erase the prequel trilogy. She didn't erase Clone Wars. She didn't erase Rebels. She gave us Solo. I liked Solo. So it's not really worth, just not really worth the energy getting super worked up all the time, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But why don't you go ahead, Corion? You seem to enjoy this ride more than I did.
Yeah, I absolutely enjoyed the Mandalorian ride. I felt like we got a fairly reasonable mix of standalone episodes and components of the meta plot of the reunification of Mandalore. I thought I liked that we got progression on each individual character's story arc throughout. I am a Bo-Katan fan. I am a Rebels fan. So I managed to get some nice little fun pieces here and there. I really like Moff Gideon as a bad guy, right? I really felt like throughout the Mandalorian series, he has been the bad guy we've deserved. And, we got a great series. Like, this episode was chock full of great moments of his. And that was fantastic, right? I enjoyed where they took the characters. I enjoyed that they took the time to break the existing cycles and show that Mandalore needed a clean start, right? There were deep attempts to get plot points in place. And did all of them hit? No. But I do appreciate the effort. For me, this is a solid 6 out of 7 for the episode. And I would probably say a 5 out of 7 for season 3 of Mandalorian. That's where I'm sitting on it. I liked some of the funnier, goofier droid moments in this episode. I liked I loved the idea of giving Grogu a mech suit and letting him go play in it because it was fun and it was the kind of nonsense that we were saying should have been there from day one. And, we got it. We got a lot of good pieces. We got some deep Mandalorian lore, which is lore we haven't seen on the big screen yet. We got to see why the Empire was like, no, we got to keep Mandalore either out of this one way or completely out of it a different way, but it can't be allowed to become a power again. And, those are neat pieces. I feel like it set up Ahsoka, which is going to start in August, very, very well. We get the impression that we are dealing with a sector of the galaxy from this galaxy far, far away that wouldn't be terrible to go visit again, right? I think they set it up so that if they do a season 4, we are going to have a sequence of standalone adventures very much like the first season, right? I'm actually hoping that if they do a season 4, we even maybe get like a 5-year gap so that, Grogu grows up a little bit and becomes more of a bounty hunter. I think that could be fun. I think they did a lot. I think it was a lot of good. I think there were a few missteps. Yeah, I think there might have been. I think, there were points where they put stuff in because other plot points got ruined, so they had to think on their feet and correct it. And that's a shame, right? Because I would have very much liked to have seen the director's cut version of this season the way it was originally intended. But what I saw, I enjoyed. It's one of those, I enjoyed it. I think it could have been better. But I really want to see what the original intent was, because I think I can see where they were going, and that could have been amazing. But what do you guys think?
Go ahead, John. Or unless it's a good moment for you, Skogli.
Oh, I was gonna let Skogli go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, no. Actually, I actually really enjoyed The Mandalorian, and yet it's got the parts I didn't like were it was different than like Starch, and just I don't know, like long drawn out scenes that don't like seem to matter, and then they backtrack and they have a conversation that's irrelevant to the plot. Aside from like issues like that, a lot of time wasting. Bo-Katan's a bona fide badass, and so is Katie Sackhoff. And as long as you're cool with Bo-Katan going through the hero's journey and that being the thing, like, you're gonna have a good time. If anybody thought that Din Djarin was gonna become the king of Mandalore, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where the setup of the random other episodes, like, if that stuff's going to come into play in the next season. I sure as bloody well hope so. I don't know. Cautiously optimistic for next season. This one was kind of frustrating in a way, but overall, I generally liked it.
Yeah. All right.
Bo-Katan kicks ass. I'm cool with that.
Well, for me, and I'll just take mine right into the spoilers. For me, I'm actually rewatching Star Wars again because of it. So that's why I say I'll take it in the spoilers, because like it's all kind of connected. My overall review is like I stand by what I've been saying mostly last week, but like thinking over the whole season, like there have been so many just negative releases. 4,000 people just got laid off today, right? So like that's a huge, or yesterday, in line again with this, like the season finale. Here comes Mandalore, and 4,000 human beings lost their jobs. Like, as somebody who's constantly looking for work, it is rough out there in the job market.
Yeah. So for me, I think the biggest issue I've had and it's pretty much culminated into, because I mean the finale, the last episode was a good episode, but this season was just sloppy. And that's really my biggest issue, is because it hasn't been. Mandalorian originally had a couple of tight seasons to begin with, and then it's just, I don't really know what the overall direction is. Now, I will give credit where due. It was funny, fooling some of the other pop culture commentators into thinking that this was, you know, a current era woman emasculating type thing, and it was very obviously another Mad Max Fury Road situation. Guys,
Well,
what?
I feel like that's the thing about this season. It definitely, like, the holes are there. Like, you can see where the Gina Carano episode was supposed to go, and I think that's where the Jack Black episode came in, and that's why it's so rushed and choppy. But like, for me, there was a lot of through lines in this like whole season, especially when it comes to like the portions about the Mandalorian culture. Like, we've seen one Mandalorian kind of coming back to his group, kind of finding his own on his own, and also on a mission with a child that we're all like, you know, we all kind of got that was like marketing. But like, one of the big things that this season did is, like, my son's already into Star Wars now because there's a baby just like him on the screen. And legitimately, I say, do you want to watch Baby Grogu? And he's like, yep. And I get to watch Star Wars without him fighting me at all. Like, that's no other show that I like is like that. And so to me, like, that's what this season did in itself, but also like that's what this show's been doing. So for me, I feel like a lot of the major plot points were around the Mandalorians becoming the Mandalorians again, getting together again, these tribes uniting. And I feel like that's really where the Jack Black episode really like flopped, was because had it have been Gina Carano that they ran into on another mission doing something with the Mandalorians, that would have been nuts to me. And so in that instance, I think that like a lot of the animosity towards this season mostly comes in the sense that like we're angry at Disney Star Wars as it is, and they're never giving us a different reason to be. And then on top of all of that, like if you add in all of the negative content plus any reason that it's gone bad, the fact that they had to hack and slash and do reshoots and, you know, do all this during COVID, so there's obviously going to be those kinds of issues. All together, it ends up being like, what is going on with the Mandalorians? But I don't know, to me it still was a great season. It was a great show. It's still been a great show. I just feel like it's plagued with nonsense in the external versus internally it has been consistently good.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the middle of a Rebels rewatch, actually, and H. Marie is absolutely loving it, and I am too, because it's better than I remember watching the first time. Whether it's been aged well because of crappy Star Wars, or maybe the episodic drop is a bit different, whereas I get to watch the whole show at my leisure. There's clearly a lot of differences, but the thing is, this wasn't a story about emasculating Din Djarin at all. He's not going to lead the Mandalorians. He's not that type of character. He's a lone gun, you know, drifter traveling from place to place. I thought that
he's a father. He adopted Grogu, like not just like adopted him at the end, but he adopted him at the beginning.
Yeah,
that was the book of Boba Fett that we missed, but like that's who he became, was an actual like it wasn't the emasculation of Din Djarin. It was look at this guy being a at work dad.
No, but unfortunately, a lot of there's certain Star Wars fans who don't like to watch cartoons or whatever, and there's others that you know. So there's people that don't know Bo's backstory or who she's importantly related to, and so it's a lot of it's established that Mandalore has had a female ruler in the prime spot. So it's not uncommon for the Mandalorian culture to have that. And I liked the way that they displayed that, because they displayed it perfectly with that last fight. That was a very good way to not only send off Moff Gideon, but also to show that without Din Djarin, Bo's nothing, and vice versa. They needed each other, and that's what that last sequence is about. That's why when he breaks the Darksaber, it doesn't mean anything, because the whole point of rallying behind something so silly was dumb to begin with. You're supposed to rally behind the spirit of Mandalore, and we saw the spirit of Mandalore on display with both Din and Bo working together to save the day and win it out. So I think that's but it is, if you don't know that, with the current era bullshit that's gone on between Rey Palpatine and, all the shit they do in Star Trek to try and empower females by belittling males, it's going to be hard to not read into it too much. So I understand the dislike. It's just, all I can say is get over it. I mean, it's not the case here. And, I know that because I've actually watched the stuff. So...
Yeah, I mean, look, in Wicca, one of the most important components of the religion is that, men have the power, but the women have the ability to channel that power, right? So you can't get one to work without the other, right? That there is this balance, this sacred, uneven, even balance, right? That without both of them working in concert, playing to their strengths, you don't succeed. That was what that fight was against Moff Gideon. Because you literally had a scenario where Din rushes in like a bull, and then you've got Bo-Katan using the opening he creates to pull off, she was able to pull off some move to really screw Moff Gideon off. It was this beautiful maneuvering play between the two of them. And
I love Baby Yoda. The guy bends down to pick up his shock stick. Yoda's like, whoop.
Yeah, look, Baby Yoda was playing this as awesome as you could possibly hope for. Because anytime they would try to gang up on him, all he did was equalize the fight out, basically.
You just whoop, just little maneuvers. It's like, oh, you little devil, you.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's moving the pebbles to cause the avalanche, right?
Yeah. It was great.
We get to see a Super Saiyan of the Force be handicapped by literally just being tiny. And so we get to finally see that, the Force user act as an actual, like a healer type character in a video game, rather than as the tank that Jedis are. So it's, to me, I feel like that's the greatest part about Grogu in terms of everything else. Yes, he's a merchandising ploy, yes, marketing, but also they found a way to make him a handicapped Jedi. One that's so handicapped he can't just be spitting wisdom, changing the game, can't be just ruling everything in any form or fashion, has very few motor functions, and limited force access.
Yes. No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but his escalation has been phenomenal. It's been very subtle amounts of force use extra. 1-3 jumps into most episodes, and then now he's kind of in a fight, but if you count the minutes, that was a full 20 minutes.
And what I thought was great was, after he pulls the biggest stunt we've seen him pull in quite a while, you can see him sit down and be like, okay, I need a nap, right? I hit my limit on this. And I thought
super valiant. Bo-Katan slides in there with that tiny shield. I'm like, oh man, that's not going to cut it. Holy shit.
Yeah. No, it has a lot of it has a lot of its moments, but like I said, you could edit it down to a 3-hour movie, and I think it was just its execution was just sloppy.
This is I think we can both agree for both shows, the 10-episode format didn't work.
We didn't even get 10. This doesn't even count as a full season. I'm sorry. It's from now on, the new standard is a full season is 10 or more episodes. Actually, I even want to elevate that to 12 at a minimum. Otherwise, this is just a bloated miniseries, a very bloated miniseries.
10 episodes of growing escalation and 2 episodes of climactic resolution. Like
if that's the formula you need to use, or we can go back to 26 episodes.
Yeah, where the last 6 are the climactic execution resolution. Like, to me,
Right.
I feel like we spend so much time trying to get that 10-episode movie out there, and it's like,
a thought.
Lord of the Rings wasn't even a 10-episode movie.
No, it wasn't.
There was Helm's Deep in the final King, like Return of the King, but both of those still had an hour-and-a-half intermission of walking.
Yeah. Also, a thought has been inspired since you guys started talking. John, mentioning the visuals about being appealing, I think we've hit a point in entertainment where you pretty much do need to have good story and visuals, because I'm realizing, and I'd been thinking about it leading up to this discussion, I think one of the reasons that a lot of people had trouble getting into Star Trek, especially in the 60s, is because they couldn't look past the crappy visuals. Because, now, you cannot, I'm just going to say plainly and simply, the Roddenberry model just didn't work. TOS was canceled, motion picture flopped, and TNG, the network executive, said, you guys need to change something because we need more viewers. Now, the go-to response that I've had with other Trekkies is, well, people are just too stupid to understand the show. Okay, you cannot believe in Federation idealism and then write off your fellow man as being too stupid to understand those ideals. So, the thing I'm starting to notice is, well, the stories probably would have worked with a lot of people if the visuals hadn't disillusioned them so much. We aren't disillusioned by the visuals as much because we're not focused on the visuals. We're focused on the story and the characters. That's what brings us. That's what reached to us. The visuals are just there to help build the world around it. You're supposed to imagine the rest of it. You know, fun fact about DS9, which we'll be talking about soon, the promenade set wasn't a full circle. It was only half circle. They just moved things and changed out the shops to make the illusion that the entire thing had a full circle. Now, of course, in Star Trek,
you get to see the other side in Lord X.
Yeah. In Star Trek Online has a great replica recreation, but of course it's to the proper map, not just half of it. So you do get the full promenade experience. But the thing is, the visuals matter. What I'm trying to get at is we now need to take these amazing visuals, which Star Wars definitely had the best solid VFX that I think any show has put out at all this year. So we need to combine the two, and that's where we need to get to, is we need to have not just good, compelling stories, but we need the kick-ass visuals. We need the Millennium Falcon Enterprise moments, not all the time, but just every once in a while to keep the interest there, to keep, you know, we can have like a 3 or 4 episode story arc dealing with some diplomatic stuff, and then, oh no, a crazy alien race shows up, and now we have to team up, and oh, as it turns out, us teaming up to fight a common foe has brought peace. Oh, what a great story that could be, but also awesome at the same time.
Should have been, like, James Cameron's Avatar should have been Star Trek. It should have been Star Trek goes to Avatar Land. And that's the whole experience. It's literally just this Starfleet meeting this culture. For some reason, they are stranded on this world because that's how they broke the first directive, or prime directive, right? Because they're meeting primitives. But other than that, like, it's just Star Trek people surviving on that world, because that's what Star Trek has always been. And now you've got James Cameron level, like, details. If you just add those characters into that world can be whatever James Cameron wants it to be. You just have easy entrance. All the Star Trek fans are like, let's see how the Federation handles this one. And it happens the way it happens, and who cares? Because that's what Star Trek always was to me, was like this show of, here's the utopian society actually being idealistic and actually nailing it and actually being good to everyone. Because like you said earlier, Parker, like, that was the show that always had the characters gave their pitch, but they also never wrote an entire civilization off. Like, they were always trying to get the Klingons back, then they were always trying to get the Romulans back, then they were trying to win the Borg over. Like, At no point did they see an unstoppable, unrelenting evil that just needed to be destroyed and subjugated. All they saw was a broken civilization that needed to be repaired and unified and taken care of. And that's what I think that like Star Trek should do with the vision. And then Star Wars should take from Transformers. Like, what is going on where you've got, like, it took, for me, that was the biggest.
Dude. Nothing should be taken from Michael Bay's Transformers. Nothing.
Dude, those explosions in space, that's what the droids should be doing every time they blow up one of those speeders. Parker, you're muted. Parker, you forgot your mute button.
Damn it, I had a good thing going too. Oh well.
But I agree. I think, like, to me, I think that there's a lot of this, like, who should take from what? And I think that I think that Star Wars has it already. Like, Star Wars already took from everything else, right? They got the space, they got the opera, they got magic, and now all they need to do is just get the writers to write cohesive stories with proper power escalation. And I think that's what Mandalorian really represents, is not only power escalation, but civilian or civilization escalation. We went from one lone clan member to now we're back to a race, a species of fighters working together. Like, I feel like that's what's missing.
Yeah, I just it's also missing story structure and just properly, you know, how are we supposed to tell this story? And I think that's, and now they're already talking about a Mandoverse movie or whatever, and it's like, well, why didn't you just do that? So for me, with Star Wars, it's you know, let's find out what happens with Ahsoka and the Veil of the Force, and of course we'll keep an eye on the Disney drama as it continues to unfold, because it's always good there. But I think now is as good a time as any to head back to our own galaxy once again. This week we got back into Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Had a couple of episodes. One of them I was not too enthused. The other I watched today before the show and was like, wow, for a cheesy premise all around, that was not cringy. But we'll of course get into that right now. So the first one is of course from season 2, and it is the 17th episode of DS9, titled Playing God. Storyline: Arjun, a Trill candidate to undergo the joining, comes to Deep Space Nine to be Dax's initiate. She has to mentor him and make recommendations if he's worthy to be joined. Arjun seems not happy to be assigned to Dax, knowing what mentor Curzon did to Jadzia. He's trying to do everything according to the normal expectations to please her, but is disappointed to find out she's not an ordinary Trill. On their first way... So it just sounds like he's just having trouble courting her. I mean, you know, it's normal. On their first away mission in the Gamma Quadrant, they accidentally hit a subspace pocket. A strange protoplasmic substance attaches itself to the nacelle. After investigating it on Deep Space Nine, Dax finds out it's a proto-universe. It's expanding and slowly, but surely replacing the present universe. Meanwhile, O'Brien and Kira try to battle an infestation of Cardassian voles. They bite through everything and become more and more a serious threat to the station. Synopsis by Arnud Tiali, I think. Whatever. Either way, great synopsis if you're reading. Sorry if I butchered your name, but I still try to give credit where I can. So, for those of you that follow in the TWB Discord, you already know that I was kind of feeling pretty woof about this episode overall. But Corion, why don't you start off with your thoughts?
Alright, well, the whole Arjun Trill thing, it was character development for Jadzia, which was fine, but it didn't really thrill me. What I felt
no thrills with Trills.
Well, you know, look, if you want to thrill me with Jadzia, she's got to be in a bikini. But anyway,
she was in a towel.
Oh, when they go to Risa, dude, that's all I'm gonna say. But what made it for me, and I felt like this was a bit of a missed opportunity, to be honest, was they pick up a proto-universe that they figure is eventually going to wipe theirs out if it's allowed to continue to grow. That has some serious... And when they find out that there's potentially intelligent life growing in this universe as well, this is a very interesting conundrum. And I feel like they really could have explored it more. Like, if they had been contacted by this species growing up in this galaxy with like, wait, are you God kind of moment, it could have been so amazing. Or even better, have them not have a concept like how the wormhole aliens don't have a concept of linear time. And so they view the Bajoran people like the Bajorans view the prophets. We could have had a fantastic moment like that, but it was just wasted potential for this episode.
It was a plot device because the plot was about Jadzia and the student. And so it's one of those situations that they didn't properly flesh out, just like the Nexus with Generations. I think it was one of those situations. It's like, okay, Jadzia, we're going to build some Trill lore. Okay, greenlit. And we're going to write a story around it. They pick up some plasma, starts a proto-universe, the usual Star Trek moral conundrum, only to find out that the concept they created was better than the story they came up with.
Right.
But there's already a Rick and Morty episode that does pretty much what you're saying. So, I mean, It kind of already gets addressed. But
this sounds like slavery with extra steps.
Yeah, I feel you there, buddy. So, but yeah, it's like I said, the concept definitely outran the story that was intended on this one. I would agree.
Yeah.
John, you want to go ahead and start so I can interrupt you?
For me, I don't know. I like what you said.
I don't know either. Skogli, no, I'm just kidding.
You're good. I agree. I get all that. I don't see a lot of this story being kind of all that unique in terms of, like, I don't know. I just didn't really find it to be that thought-provoking, but mostly because of the Rick and Morty. Like, I came at it from a more, it's already been tested and better proven area.
Like I said, the concept wasn't the main point. It was about Jadzia and the student, and then also O'Brien and Kira tagging Beanie Babies, and that was a plot that actually came up with. But hey, it's not Run Along Home. Yay. Skogli, what'd you think?
Oh, I'm like, yeah, the extra the like sci-fi element of this show is like totally filler, and like it was fine. I love Jadzia Dax. It's like, so she's gonna, it's like, so she has to like shoot this guy down. Like, she just does. It's like, how is she gonna come to terms with having to do that and feel good about it? And I thought that was compelling character development for her. I thought some of the Quark love scenes in the next episode were far, far more than anything in this episode. But I like the other episode too.
Hey, that's fine. We allow dissenting opinions on this show, unlike most other shows. So,
yeah, I don't know. The sci-fi filler was okay. I thought the next episode was more boring, but also more interesting at the same time. Like, especially at the very end. But we'll talk about that later. That's about all I got for this episode. It was pretty. Oh, I loved that awkward scene when he comes to her room and that guy's there, and she's in the towel, and it's all like weird and awkward. It's like, what on earth is going on here? That was hilarious.
Jadzia eye candy was going on there. That's what that was about.
Yep.
They're wrestling.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of the episodes of the series that you're just like, I think I might have to skip this one in the future. But we do get some important Jake character development. John, I hope you were paying attention to that, because that does come back later. So
yeah, that's true.
That is like if there's any one takeaway for this episode, definitely watch that. But I think we've pretty much settled the score on
Yeah,
that
let's
episode.
move on to profit and loss.
This one should be a decent discussion. At least I hope so.
Oh,
otherwise I got to pull out the filler tape of myself, or filler tape for myself.
This is one of the episodes that I make sure is in my rewatch every time.
Yep. So season 2, episode 18, Profit and Loss. A heavily damaged Cardassian ship approaches the DS9. The Deep Space Nine. Okay. On board's Professor... This one's really not great. Professor Natima Lang and 2 of her students. She wants to leave as soon as possible and to avoid problems with the Bajorans. When Lang enters Quark's bar, he seems very happy to see her. The feeling is not mutual. She and Quark had once been in a relationship, and now Quark tries everything to get back into her favor. When the 3 Cardassians see Garrick, they turn to leave. In the meantime, the crew of Deep Space Nine find out that Natima's shuttle wasn't damaged in a meteor storm as she had told them, but was hit by Cardassian weapons, which they didn't detect right away. Natima tells the DS9 crew they're part of a movement which wants to remove the military from the government, and they're now fugitives on the run. Dun, dun, dun. So this was a step in the opposite direction, and definitely one of the series' better episodes. You know, I gotta say, romance can be rather cringe in my opinion, and there's a few right ways to do it, and then there's like a lot of wrong ways to do it, and I felt that this episode overall did an interesting job of getting me to care about an interspecies romance for a crime lord slime boss. So, gotta give credit where due. Very well written overall. But what did you think, John?
I don't know. I'm with Scogly. This one kind of felt like slower, but also it was more interesting. I don't know. I kind of am really starting to get why season 2, why the talk about season 2, finally starting to get it. Why season 1 and 2 are slower. There's a lot of there's a point to the episodic where it's like, is there a through line? And that's kind of where I felt like this episode really landed for me. I don't know. Didn't feel all that interesting.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, to me, this is the episode I refer to as the eye of the needle. Because once we pass through this episode, the writing goes from where it is now to a whole lot better. This is the episode where it starts. Because we got some serious political intrigue in this episode. We really get to see that the impression we have had so far about a united, strong, scheming Cardassian Union isn't so united as we were led to believe. We get to see that Quark, who has been this antagonist slimeball this whole time, actually does have some real caring and emotion attached to him.
He has feelings, only like 1 or 2, but they are there.
Right. Okay. We get to see a relationship between 2 alien species, which, correct me if I'm wrong, chat and everyone else, I think this is the first time we see 2 completely alien species. We see a romance between 2 completely alien species, not involving any sort of human contact. So, that is interesting in and of itself, right? We get to see Garrick be Garrick. This is where we really start to see him go from, thorn in Ducat's side, and maybe that's why he's been kicked out of the Union, to no. Now we see this guy may be one of the most evil and sinister individuals we know exists. And that is fantastic. They took the time to start building Garrick into a real character. And Garrick only gets better from here. We get some really challenging political maneuvering done by the Starfleet staff. And we get to see that, like, the Bajorans really are kind of in a weird space here. Because on one hand, helping these dissidents thumbs their nose at Cardassia, which ain't necessarily a bad thing. But on the other hand, it's helping Cardassians, and screw those guys in general. So, you know, we get to see everybody's political agendas play out, right? We get to see a cute little cop moment between Odo and Quark, right? Where Quark is accused of, you know, illegally smuggling a cloaking device. And Quark's like, dude, whatever, you got no proof. And then at the end, it's like, well, how are you going to get him out of here? It's like, oh, you know that cloaking device you were going to bust me for? Yeah, I'm going to install it. It'll be all good. And Odo being like, I knew it, right? You know, like, damn it. And that was fantastic, right? Everybody got a little bit of a moment in this episode. And that's what made it great. At least to me.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you mentioned. I mean, watching this episode this afternoon, I was like, you know, I can understand the point of people like Nerdporial Lifeform, for example, who don't feel that Picard Season 3 was a return to form. But it's like, yeah, I don't want to get back to TNG episodic style or TOS style storytelling, me personally. Should they try a show doing it? Couldn't hurt at this point. There's 5 other Star Trek shows on, or there's ones that have ended but are also being replaced. We'll see what happens. So, you know, I think we can absolutely try it, but I think the DS9 model is absolutely the way forward. Having some kind of overarching plots to go through, but also give us our bad guy of the week, but don't forget the rest of the story, and don't forget to, you know, occasionally have a cool moment of pew pew. I think Trek benefits from having action. Every time Star Trek has put action in it usually generates more interest. Now the TNG films flopped because, well, they just aren't very good. But 2009 Star Trek was like the highest grossing Star Trek movie of all time. Unfortunately, Into Darkness went and shat all over the success that movie was generating, and then of course Beyond steps back in to try and fix it. Didn't work, unfortunately. It is what it is. But there was clearly an effort made to make it good and to try and make it proper Star Trek. That's why we are doing this show with Star Trek shows running, is that hopefully people will take the time to consider, like, look, this is what we want to get back to. But once we get back to DS9 Star Trek, the expectation is that you also continue to seek out new and better storylines even from that. What that'll look like, I don't know. We need to get back to that good formula first. And this episode is proof that the 45-minute formula still works. We had a story that had so much character moments. I really enjoyed the banter between Quark and frickin' Garrick. That Garrick was speaking in code the whole time, and Quark knew it. And if you're not paying attention to the dialogue, you're not going to have any idea what they're talking about, which is the whole point.
It's like the dinner scene on Godfather. It's like all in like allegory. You're like, ooh, this is good.
Yeah.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Exactly, Scogli. That's an excellent point. It's the fact that we have a clear use of words in a way that's meant to be more clever, and we just don't have that. And I will gladly agree that no, there isn't a whole lot of major dialogue moments. There's good scenes between Picard and Riker in Picard Season 3. There's good scenes between all the characters, but they don't quite have the same weight behind them that
the gravitas behind the words. Yeah,
it's there in some situations, but it's just not quite there, and it needs to get there. And like I said, Season 3, regardless of your personal opinion, it is a noticeable improvement, and we are getting better, but we need to keep getting better. And so that's why I agree. This is one of the strongest episodes, and looking ahead a little bit, I think you're right. I think this is where things are going to take off. It's just good. That's really all I can say about this episode. Was it's really good. I enjoyed it, and I definitely. But John, what did you think?
No, back to me. No, I think Corian
right.
definitely made it out.
Sorry, it looked like you had a thought. That's what I meant to say.
No, I think Corian, you pointed it out a lot better to me, because like for me, a lot of the way I saw the episode was like, for me, all of this character stuff has been apparent since the beginning. Like Quark has had feelings the whole time, as far as like the Ferengi go. Like he is the weakest of the bunch, because like he has cared for his nephew and his brother despite all of their, like, in Ferengi sense, failings, but really just in the sense that they're a little bit more domesticated than the rest of the Ferengi, right? And Quark is treading the line. Like Quark to me legitimately reminds me of like the ugliest version of the main character from Peaky Blinders.
Yeah.
Like he is a gangster, but he does not look good. And this episode was like, look, you can even love ugly Quark, and that's okay. But that's more like childhood prejudice towards the Ferengi in general. I've said it before, the butthead thing has always gotten to me. But like, that's what I think that I like most about Quark throughout the entire season and series so far as like I've been paying attention, is like, he is supposed to be the mafioso race. Like that's their whole character race plot, and their general generic drop is to be the mafioso, and he's that. Like he legitimately runs the promenade in terms of like his bar is beloved by everyone, and he does have the law. Even though it's like a very adversarial relationship, he still has the law completely under his thumb. Like, and this episode went to show that. Like Odo's doing his best, and Odo's a shapeshifter who can cheat, and he still can't beat Quark. So like Quark is still a gangster, but also to me he's like never not been a more human of the Ferengi, and mostly in that sense that like he does care. So like, I don't know, that's why I say it was more to me filler, is the fact that like the episode was giving these characters all that like solid character development, which for me has been there the whole time, because we watch all these other shows where characters get like 1 minute of development per season. And that's so like the last 2 seasons have just been getting to know these characters, and it's been great. But like I'm really hoping the rest of the series goes much more adventurous. And I'm like, the way you guys painted, it sounds like it gets substantially more like meaty, like digging into those heavy questions, because we know the crew, we know what they should stand for. Now let's see if they do. And when they don't, it sounds more like a character flaw than a break in immersion, you know? Which is where like, that's what I think Picard really hurts, is like it's a constant immersion break.
Yeah. Honestly, if you like action, the next episode is going to be hilarious to listen to you review. Because I know what the next episode is, and it's God's damn amazing.
It's not action so much as it is action in any of the senses bigger than just character development. Like, I like character tests. I like crucibles. But after I've gotten to know the characters. So if it's that kind of crucible, I'm down. It sounds fun. I'm excited.
Yeah. I think you're going to get on board, and you're going to see why I said that this episode is the beginning of where things get dialed up to 11. And, you know, I don't know. I enjoy this episode because, you know, like I said, we get pieces we didn't see before, right? We got it hinted at. We got it hinted that Garrick may be some kind of spook, right? But everyone's kind of cool with a spook until they start doing spook kind of stuff, right? And then they go, whoa, wait a minute. This guy's a stone cold killer that has zero problem with doing it just to move the needle a little farther in his favor. That's kind of cool, right? And you don't really see that from shows set in the early 90s until now, right? You know, we get the, you know, like in a lot of ways, I feel terrible for Sisko in this episode. because like he is really in like the worst situation he could possibly be in, right? The Cardassians look like they could be starting a civil war. The Bajorans are like, yes, fight! And he's sitting there going like, no, wait a minute, guys. We want a stable system here so we can bring you guys some shiny, bright enlightenment. And you guys having a war with you guys like standing around placing bets on the Cardassians is not going to produce that stable kind of environment for some shiny, bright, Federation toys. And that's hilarious, right? That he's kind of in this situation through zero fault of his own. And he's got to deal with the political ramifications of that. We've got Quark, who, this is a woman that was the one that got away. Right? And, now he's dealing with, look, my whole life is crime. I'm gonna crime if you give me the opportunity to crime. And yet if I want to keep this, if I want a shot at this one, I have to be prepared to give it away. And he totally is. Or at least he says he is. Right? And that's intriguing, right? And, seeing the determination Quark has here, based on the kind of shiftlessness nature we've gotten from him in the previous episodes, makes this stand out for me, right? It shows he does have redeeming qualities, right? Like, yeah, he thinks his brother's an idiot and his brother's kid is like, a useless, like, growing up to be a thug or whatever, when he could be a crime boss. But this is the first time where we see him go, maybe I shouldn't be putting so much work into this life. Maybe I should be focusing on things like love and happiness and finding, true fulfillment in life. And that's fantastic. And the fact that they don't let him keep it is even better. Right? Like, if Quark had managed to win her over and gotten a good life out of the deal, he would nowhere be near as interesting a character as somebody who does not get to be happy. And really, when you think about it, look, Odo's never friggin' happy. And Quark is just as not happy. And because they're two grumpy old men doing the equivalent of playing prank jokes, like having a prank war on the promenade between each other, just makes it that much better. That, like, the most meaningful relationship they have is being the antagonist to the other one. Right? And we start to see that and feel that. And that's cool.
Dude, when you put it that way, like, it just sounds like mostly because, like, no fan loves a show that much and has that much, like, hype for even just this episode in the display, unless it gets so much deeper and so much better, which, like, is why I've been so excited about continuing this discussion, like continuing watching these episodes, because it's like I don't hear anybody talking about Picard this way. I don't hear anybody talking about Wheel of Power, Rings of Power, whatever, like the Amazon shows. Like, everybody that does like them is like, yeah, they're really cool. And that's as far as they'll get into it. But like, when you're like, no, this episode right here really shows you a lot of things about this character that you're going to eventually be like, wow, rewatching that episode again makes me understand a lot more. And it's like, that's good writing. That's, to anybody that's like from Paramount, like watching us talk about this, that's what we're talking about when we say, like, get back to the good. Like, write some of these characters out 6-7 seasons in advance, and if for some reason they die early, like, that's the crippling death. That's what made Red Wedding great, was because, like, so many of the characters that died had so many more hero moments waiting for them.
That was some shocking shit.
Stolen. Yeah, that to me is what's fun.
Yeah, and then they followed it up with a boring fucking episode, and then followed it up with a fairly season 4, and then if the season 5 got so bad that I jumped off midway through, and yeah, anyway, we don't need to get into that. That's for another time, as in never. No, I think it just it shows that you know, Corione wasn't as easily won over by some of the moments, but also, you know, we haven't had a proper DS9 reunion show either, so there is that. But no, it goes back to what I've been saying. Like yes, Picard season 3 is noticeable improvement. All right, anyone who keeps saying it's more of the same, I will tell you right to your face, objectively,
they haven't watched Discovery.
They're wrong.
They haven't watched it.
I actually had someone say that season 2 of Discovery was better than this, and I was like, you need to go back and rewatch season 2 of Discovery then, because well, here's what season 2 Discovery for me. Season 2 Discovery I liked because of Anson Mount, which is what everyone did, which is why we have Strange New Worlds
and Saru. I love Saru.
Saru is an interesting character as well. But season 2 had such, like, I gotta give credit where due, because the build-up during that season was very well written and intriguing. It had me interested. For the most lousy payoff I've ever experienced on a sci-fi show. Like, it was back to the really bad elements of Star Trek. Crappy time travel, which is why the Voyager ending sucks. Which is also why I don't hold it too much against the ending of Picard, because I'm sorry. People have been saying, well, why didn't they just grab the Voyager with the advanced armor? Okay, we've all been complaining about the Voyager ending being terrible. But I guess we've gotten over it now. We've just kind of generally... Okay, if we're going to just generally accept Janeway going back in time to give herself technology to get Voyager home faster, and that's the official timeline, what does it matter at this point what they do? I don't really see if we're just going to break our own rules and change canon and stuff anyway. Like, I guess that's why I'm glad that we got season 3 Picard the way they did, because it wasn't as absurd. But it's acceptable to me because Trek has also been absurd from the get-go. So, I don't know. But I do expect better, though. But at the same time, I have to accept the fact that everyone's opinion is valid and that they don't like it for the reasons. Well, I do think a lot of people are blinded by hatred. At the same time, I also know people who aren't blinded by hatred and have been able to say, yeah, I like this about the show. I thought this was great, but the story just isn't working for me. And I'm like, well, all right, that's fair.
We need more ambiguity, like at the very end of that last episode of Deep Space Nine, where like Garrick's like, how he comes to like the decision as to whether to let them go or not. Like he's gonna turn them in, and then he just does it to spite the other guy. Like, yeah. Right?
Right, because he realizes, never mind, this wasn't going to be my ticket home. Well, all right, it was all just, you're all just trying to use and manipulate me. Garrick don't get manipulated.
Garrick's the best. He's my favorite character.
Sorry, you scared me saying the end of DS9. I was like, I don't know, spoilers.
No,
The episode. Yeah, those. Yeah.
No, not the last episode. Our last episode.
Yeah.
Just coming up for this. I'm trying to protect Nemesis of Eden from season 6 spoilers. I'm like, okay, guys, Nemesis hasn't seen this. Tone it down.
Yeah, look, I mean, to me, if I don't like something, I need to back that up with evidence, right?
Exactly.
If I like something, I also need to back it up with evidence. So, like,
not as much though. Not as much with evidence. Like,
well, I want to point out reasons because but
they don't have to be as objective as what I'm trying to say. Like, you don't have to win people over as to why you personally like something. You just have to articulate. It's best to articulate why you love it.
Right. I mean, I guess this is my point. If I'm gonna be in the viewers of this show's shoes, I want the person who's coming on to be able to back up what they're saying, right? I'm cool with opinion pieces, right? Look, I've got a lot of this, but if I can't provide a at least logical argument to explain something, then I'm doing a disservice to the people who are watching it.
Not just the people who are watching it, you're also doing a disservice to yourself.
Exactly. And if I like something, the reason why I like to explain it is because, take John, for example. John several times has gone, when I've said something, I never thought of it that way. And when he's thought about it that way, his perception of it changes. And that is awesome. So, look, you guys want to win hearts and minds? You have to be able to say something more than it sucks, or, yeah, I liked it, right? You have to be able to sit down and go, no, this is why, right? And when you consider it from this angle, this will change your perception of it.
I think,
and you know what? That I think is something that we do here that is awesome.
I think that's going to be our official rules for gauging content going forward, Corion, is if it's bad, you need to articulate more than just you don't like it. That's what we expect, is we want your articulated evidence as to why you think it's bad, not just, I don't like it. Like, if that's your resolution by the end of the discussion, that's fine, but that's not going to be what steers the discussion. Whereas, now, if you do like something, no, you don't necessarily have to convince me to like it, just share why you like it. All right, unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of the line, pretty much. I want to thank all of you guys who helped bring us to 300 and are going to obviously carry us to 300 beyond Nemesis of Eden. Shout out to you, Eddie, Arndt, thanks for tuning in. You guys and everybody else who lurked just to listen to the discussion, we do appreciate it all around. If you like what you see, guys, please like, share, subscribe, all of it, blast it all out there. We don't expect you guys to click the notification bell, but I am just going to inform you as a convenience, if you are wanting to prioritize us over some of your other subscriptions, that will, you know, show us up first. Or if you like other people better than us, then you can set it up that way too. We're more interested in the audience who wants to be here, so we're not too worried if we're not your first choice, but we are at least a choice. Hey, we're glad we're even considered. Next week, we're going to take Tuesday off because the Thursday is May the 4th be with you, which will be our Star Wars special. So we will be showing up for that on Thursday. So next Tuesday, we will be off, and we'll be back the following week with more DS9, as well as other content. We are open to community input, but it looks like we got something on Apple that we might pick up. And maybe one or two other things to get us through, at least until June, when Nick Jr. TOS comes back on. So, other than that, I think that pretty much just says most everything we need to. I just got to run down the rest of the clock here.
Corion's Iger's game is at 600 plus views. Well done, Corion.
Oh, right, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Iger, if you watch it.
Amazing.
You know,
yep, and join us Thursday on the Road Council. I'm Peter York. We'll see you when we see you. This has been a presentation of the Writer Brothers Tuesday Night Live Show. The Writer Brothers, restoring respect into Discord.